All right. So I ran across another article that was asking the question, is Etsy the right platform for business? And really, they're trying to decide, is this something that a business should be considering? And what they're saying here is, if you are already in e-commerce, should you add Etsy, or is Etsy a platform you should even consider putting your business on? So I'm going to go ahead and bring this article up. I was kind of surprised that NerdWallet actually put this out, because it's not typical, I don't believe, that they do something on that's just clearly business related. I mean, they do a lot of finance, but I guess it would have something to do with finance. So
Yeah, it's
um,
people trying to make a side hustle income, right? That's kind of how they're looking at it.
Yeah. So, I mean, basically what they're saying here is, like, they're giving all of the things, like, why Etsy could work for you, why you might want to consider other options. All right. Growing your business may require you to build your brand outside of Etsy, as diversifying your sales channels can help sellers reach more customers. After opening her Etsy shop in 2019, Paula Me, is that how you would say it? Um, I don't know. I'm going to try. Waited until
Bellamy.
2021 to launch her own site, having proven that her products could attract buyers. Then she invested in branding and marketing to build her Etsy success. When you have an established brand or you're growing, that's when you need to own your own website, she says. Chris, have we ever said that before? Yeah, let's give
Rudy
that a
clapped. Rudy
let's give
clapped for Palumi or Palumi. That is exactly the approach that we take, Scott, which
Yep.
is interesting to me. And I think that paragraph, if you get nothing else out of this, I know an English teacher says that's not a paragraph because it's only 2 sentences, but I'll call it a paragraph, is probably the most powerful portion of this article, because they're saying, look, it's a great place to get started, but here's something you want to consider down the road, right?
Yep.
And if that's where we're getting started, what are the things we need to think about, and when do we need to do them? That timeline, Scott, is pretty darn close to what you and I have talked about, right? We're going to spend our first 12 to 18 months really getting our feet under us. If you're a little more tech savvy, or you have somebody that you trust that's a little more tech savvy, maybe you start a website before then. But if you get those first 12 to 18 months, you start to build the foundation on Etsy, then it becomes a lot easier to be able to pay for the help that you need, or pay for the things that you need to start building out the website and doing marketing outside of Etsy. It's also more than long enough to, one, validate that it's not just going to make you $200 a month, and two, know that you're going to have that steady income to be able to do the other things. Know that you have enough customers inside Etsy to support the things you're trying to start to do outside of Etsy. So that to me makes perfect sense. And that's almost bang on the timeline you and I have talked about in the past.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I mean, so they go on to say, are your products handmade? So it looks like she has a jewelry business. And it looks like it's, let's see, side hustle to her career in corporate. So she's a corporate, and doing a little jewelry business and handmade. Okay. Now, again, this could be print on demand. This could be handmade. This could be digital. Doesn't really matter. What they're saying is they're validating that, yes, it's a good platform to get started on, like we've said, because there's less things that you have to worry about. People don't realize, when you start on a site by yourself, you got to go find the traffic. You got to convert the traffic. You got to also understand optimization. You got to understand how to hook up internal emails that are automated, that if someone adds something to their cart and it gets triggered, that, you could send out an email to them or notify them. Like, all that stuff, people don't realize how much work is involved to get all that stuff up. So why go through all of that if you don't prove that it actually can work? And I think that's what they're saying here. But now it does say why you might want to look elsewhere. And I'm just going to skim through this. When it comes to Etsy offers exposure to buyers in more than 200 countries, but even the most beautiful products won't sell if shoppers have other priorities. Angie thinks Etsy shoppers tend to have an appreciation for handmade and are prepared to pay higher prices, whereas people go on eBay to get a bargain. I agree with that. I think Etsy is probably, though, starting to, because there is a lot more people selling just, I don't want to say it, but crap. It's like it's becoming a little bit more polluted, and I think people are starting to see that stuff's on there. It's kind of like Temu, right? It's like they're seeing that, and then it's like you expect that from Temu, but you don't expect that from Etsy. So I just think that moving forward, Etsy does have to be careful with that. And if you are a seller, understand that, yes, the platform has really made it known that that's what the type of, person that they want to attract. People that want a gift that's personalized, that'll pay a little bit more.
And Scott, that's something Etsy's tripled down on different times this year. Um, they launched gift mode, and then actually the last quarterly call that they had, so it would have been the Q3 earnings call. The CEO got asked a question about how do you earn more even if you don't bring in new buyers or new sellers or whatever. And essentially their answer to that was our sellers undervalue their products.
Mm,
And that's a fancy corporate way of asking people to charge more. How does
yeah.
Etsy make more with that? Well, they take a percentage. But one of the things that they have noticed is that higher things that are valued more highly sell better on the platform than things that are valued less highly. Lowly isn't a
Mm,
word that makes sense there, but things that have less value, right?
yeah.
And I think one of the interesting things that I took out of that came from a question that you and I get all the time, which goes back to the sweatshirt conversation that we had previously, which is, look, how do I make any money selling sweatshirts? And the answer is you price it at a place where people who are not the only consideration that they have, and that's what they alluded to in the NerdWallet article, is price consideration. Well, we need to price ourselves out of that because you're never going to win that race. And the Nerd Wallet article, Scott, said something to the effect of if they want a bargain, they go to eBay. If they want a high quality handmade thing, they go to Etsy. Etsy's PR department could not have written that better themselves, right? That's exactly the positioning that Etsy wants to have. And I think it's something that a lot of Etsy sellers miss out on because they see a lot of things on the platform that are $12 t-shirts or $4 coffee mugs. And they go, I can't compete with that. So I'm not going to launch one. And rather than competing on price, if you're competing on quality and the perception of value, meaning you're targeting a niche and saying, hey, this is for you if you're really into adorable puppies, or this is for you if you're looking for the perfect wedding gift, rather than being worried about price and getting everybody to buy our stuff and losing money and trying to make up losses of money at scale, we can charge higher prices, create a higher perception of value, especially within the Etsy ecosystem, and know that there are Etsy customers that are looking for that. And also know, given Etsy themselves is saying this repeatedly this year, that the higher value products are something that they're really going to be looking for. It's something Etsy wants out of Etsy sellers is for you to create more value. So don't fall into that price trap. Make sure that you're charging what you need to charge to make money. And if you're using a platform like Etsy, it's much easier to charge a higher price than it is somewhere else like eBay because Etsy's marketing is all about handcrafted, handmade. It's just for you. It's personalized. That has a higher perceived value. So we can charge higher prices. And a lot of people haven't done it yet. So that really stuck out to me because it's something that article pointed out and Etsy has doubled and tripled down on this year a couple different times.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. So let's wrap it up here though, because I mean, we can go through the entire thing. But are you willing to learn about SEO? Right. So yes, you're going to need to know on Etsy how theirs works. But then if you're going to go outside of that, you're going to have to figure out what it takes to get traffic outside of that using SEO. So SEO, you're going to hear that a lot. Search engine optimization. Yes, it's going to take a little bit of learning.
All right, but they're con here, right? And if you guys didn't figure this out, this is just a fancy way of saying pros and cons, right? They're saying why it could work for you, why you might want to look somewhere else. Scott, is Etsy SEO complex, difficult, or just confusing, in your opinion?
Well, I think it's pretty straightforward. The thing I think that's confusing for a lot of people, and even honestly, even when you're doing it, it's not like you're just going to learn exactly what you got to do. You're going to do exactly what you want to do of what you can control, but then it is up to the algorithm and really now up to the AI to decide where it's going to land. And that goes for any platform. It goes for YouTube, it goes for, Etsy, it goes for eBay, it goes for whatever. And I think we just have to understand like there's things that we can control, not hard, right? We've got a full SEO guide that we go over that. If you want a copy of that, by the way, just put SEO in the comments. But no, it's not hard. But it doesn't mean just because we do everything on the surface that you're going to automatically appear at the top of the search result, right? There's some things there. One of them you and I talk a lot about is getting sales, right? And then once you get sales, let's say that you're getting sales and someone else is getting sales and you're getting about the same sales. What else do they have to measure now? Conversion rate, right? Now, we can look at all of that and then you can go, okay, wait a minute. What if they do an algorithm update? Stuff changes. We've seen that this year. They did a major change. We lost a lot of traffic. Still shaking stuff out. Chris, has that ever happened in Google? Has that ever happened? Anybody ever have traffic where they were getting first page and then overnight it just went away and it took maybe 3 months to get back, or maybe they never got back?
Yeah, that has definitely never happened with other search engines. And they definitely didn't use adorable animal names to make it sound less scary, like panda or penguin, or, any of those kinds of updates, or literally every update that Google has ever done or Amazon has ever done, or a search engine, which is any e-commerce marketplace, has ever
Yeah.
done. And we don't have control over that. And the thing that stuck out to me here, Scott, is they're saying some small scale sellers may not be able to justify the time. There's not a lot of time that goes into SEO. And I think this is a misconception. The time goes into the listing creation. And if we do the listing creation process correctly, it's not like 7 hours, right? There is some work involved, but there should be some work involved in these things. Like, if you could just automate this entire process, then everyone would do that and everyone would make $10 million, right? We have to spend the time, energy, and effort to understand how it works. Going back to the algorithm is not all of that complex to understand. Etsy tries to make it as confusing as possible, but it really comes down to, do you qualify, right? So do you have a keyword that's related to the thing that the person is searching for? And then if you qualify, how qualified are you versus the other listings that qualify? So if we show you, are you more likely to sell than my listing or less likely to sell than my listing? And they go down through the whole 1,000 listings that qualify for that search term. And that's how they create the search engine rankings, right? This is not difficult to understand. Where people get caught up is, I would say, Scott, even before the SEO process, they get caught up in the product research process, which is why we just created a video on that. And they get confused on where their time should go, because people really dial in and they go, oh, I have to go in and tweak my tags. And if you're saying it takes a ton of time, that's probably the approach that you're using. The other interesting thing in there is they said, a potential negative of Etsy, and Scott, I want to get your thoughts on this really quick, is that their ads operate on a cost per click basis versus a cost per sale basis. I'm not aware of any major platform that has a cost per sale advertising platform, right? Amazon gives you that number, but they operate on cost per click. Facebook operates on a variation of that where they hide how they're actually charging you for it, right? Their cost per 1,000 impressions realistically, but the number that they show you is your cost per conversion. So it's not really any different. Is that a negative to you, or is that just a fact of the advertising world, the way that ads are being run?
No, that's just the way that the ads work. And it's like, you're going to learn that. I think if you're new, you're not going to realize that yet. But then once you start to play in the online digital marketing space, you're going to realize that that's very common. And actually, to me, it's great, because a lot of times you think when you first start, you're like, oh, if my product is displayed, I'm going to get charged. But you don't actually get charged unless someone clicks. Now it's up to you to have a really good product and a really good listing that converts them to a buyer. That's why whenever we're looking at listings, we're looking at, okay, how well does it convert? Oh, it converts at 2%. Great. Can we get it to 4%? We double our sales. Great. Okay. So I would say, yeah, I mean, again, we're kind of like looking at it as a beginner that doesn't know that. And if you are a beginner, that's why they did this little comparison with this site. So Chris, let's finish up here, because there's a whole bunch more that we can go through. I don't think we need to go through, like, do you know how much Etsy charges for fees? I mean, that's common sense, right? Like, we have to really understand that, yes, there's going to be fees, and people get upset with fees. But listen, there's fees in anything. If right now you're going to go off and go, I'm going to go get my own traffic on Facebook, guess what? There's fees. You know what I mean? They're going to charge you, right?
Right. And by the way, they don't use a cost per click model, right? By default. So, in that case, you do get charged when your ad is shown. I'm going to do Shopify. That's the other one that we hear. And they actually had a price comparison. They're like, oh yeah, by the way, Shopify requires a subscription. So there's not necessarily an ideal place to go. The question is, what works for you?